Whether you just got invited to speak on stage for the first time, or maybe you've been speaking for a while and you just need that refresher, this is going to be the perfect course for you because the speaker's guide serves as that big picture perspective that keeps public speaking easy. One of the main reasons most people struggle with creating their message is because they don't know how to come up with their message or what order to put it in order for it to really land with the audience. And so I created the speaker's guide to make public speaking super simple for you. I don't want you guys to overcomplicate this. Instead, I want you to use this as a simple framework that you can revisit at any time that you need it. And so we're going to jump right in, and you should have the PDF version of the speaker's guide. This is going to cover a talk that inspires. We're not getting into a talk that sells. There are other links to my offers if you want to get into like how to hook up that financial engine to your signature talk. Those offers are going to be below this video. But for this one, we're going to focus primarily on a talk that inspires, which means you're going to get the core foundational elements that go into a signature talk pre-selling. Your talk is actually supposed to be a talk that sells what it is that you do, but not everybody's ready for that, nor does everybody want to sell. And so getting started, let's get into the speaker's guide. Again, this is going to be focused primarily on a talk that inspires, just covering those key components that go into the structure of your talk. We're not hooking up your financial engine if you have, a product or a service to sell. That's part of a different offer entirely. And so we're going to jump right in. The first thing you're going to need is the speaker's guide, which is this document here. If you don't already have access to it, the link is going to be below this video. You're going to need a message or a story to share. Usually that's the starting point for most people, is they feel compelled to share a core message or a story. So you want to leverage that as much as possible here. You're going to also need the talk title and description. Now, this is going to be like your lead magnet in the market and when you're pitching to these different events and event organizers, because the talk title and the description will determine, are you aligned with the theme of the event and can you add value to that particular audience? And so jumping into what's covered, these are those high-level components that go into the structure of your talk. So first and foremost, there's the opening. Then we're going to get into transitions. We're going to cover the key talking points. And then there's the closing and call to action. And then finally, a few tips or tricks to use as a presenter. Some pitfalls to avoid are being impatient with yourself. Right? When we're tapping into that creative space, we want to make sure that we're embodying the flow. We want to be in the flow of our message. We don't want to be forcing the message or coming at it from a stressful place. We want to make sure that we're able to find that flow for ourselves. Not applying the information I'm sharing here. I do think it would be in your best interest to apply as much as possible. And if you don't need it, get rid of it. That's fine. Just make sure you apply what you can. Memorizing your talk versus embodying your talk. So if you're someone who fears forgetting your message when you're on stage or freezing when you get on stage, it's likely because you haven't, and that's the next point, put in the reps to practice and go beyond the memory to a point where you've actually embodied your message. That's what's going to make you stand out as a speaker when you are someone who it's very clear that you've practiced and you've put in the reps versus you only practice one time and you're getting up on stage and attempting to wing it. I never recommend that for anyone. And so when it comes to your opening, okay, you have a few options. Remember, the first 10 to 30 seconds is usually the game changer for you. It's going to be that moment where you're able to capture their attention right away. And there's a few different ways to go about doing that. I love that I just got the thumbs up to confirm that. So a lot of times you can open with a qualifying question. Now I call it a qualifying question because when you see that you're speaking to the right people or that your target audience is in front of you, you know how to tailor the message. And then if that's not your target audience, hopefully you can adapt your message to the room. So an example is whenever I launched my speaking career in corporate, one of the talks that I gave was around creating your personal SWOT analysis. A lot of people use this as a marketing tool to assess their market competition. I use this as a personal development tool in order to achieve my goals. And so I wanted to make sure I was speaking to the right people. And so I asked and I opened with a qualifying question. This helped me see who it is that I'm speaking to. For example, I asked, who here knows how to crush their goals? First thing I said when I walked out onto the floor. All right, what's going on, everybody? Who here knows how to crush their goals? Raise your hands. And I saw like 3 people raise their hands. And then I said, okay, well, who could use a little help crushing their goals? Everybody raised their hand. That gave me the indication that I'm in the right room and that the message I'm about to share is going to work here. Let's say you don't want to open with a question or you don't feel like qualifying your audience before your talk is the right approach for you. Maybe you want to open with a fact or a statistic then. So a lot of clients that I've worked with in the past who come from the healthcare industry that are really trying to innovate or they want to make massive changes in the healthcare industry, they open with a really strong fact or statistic to capture the audience's attention. This is important because if you have a strong message that you are here to drive change and that what you've recognized in this industry or doing this type of work is alarming and more people need to be made aware, then a fact or statistic could be a great option for you. I have some simple ones here. Contrary to popular belief, public speaking is not the number one fear. Most people think it is. It's actually death. Isn't that crazy that public speaking and death are like neck and neck at the number one fear? I just think that's remarkable. Another option you can use is a quote. So this would be more of an emotional opening. So whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you are right. A lot of times this is going to set the tone. So you just want to make sure that whatever the quote is that you're opening with, you land what comes next. You land the reason for this quote shortly thereafter. Quotes are great. You can also open with a visualization. So picture yourself doing this or imagine this, right? And again, same concept. You just want to make sure that you're landing the point shortly thereafter. And then finally, option 5 is to open with a story. Maybe none of the above really resonate with you. Maybe you just want to jump right into the story. That's perfectly fine as long as it's the most relevant story to your talk. A few things not to say, and I don't have it here. I never recommend a speaker open with, "Hi, my name is." It's likely that the host has already introduced you. And if you're only given 10, 15, 20 minutes on stage, or maybe even 45 minutes, the last thing you want to do is say, "Hi, my name is, I've been doing this. This is what I do for a living." Because it shows that you're not really there for the audience. You're trying to make it all about you, and you're going to lose their attention right out the gate. Besides the fact, it's already been talked about. So don't be redundant. Jump right into your message, right? That's the bottom line here. But a few things not to say. Thank you for the introduction. I'm super nervous. Oh, I didn't practice. I'm not very good at this. Or even making an attempt to open with a joke. So I learned from a speaker coach who has been in the industry. I think he's like 30, 40 years in. He tested one of his talks with a joke. His wife even told him not to do it, but he did it anyways. And not only did it flop, the entire audience went silent. And he said one of the hardest things to do is to recover from a bad opening. So I'm trying to save you guys that time here. Make sure you don't open with a joke. I would say just get right into your talk. I know that everybody else in the room is likely going to be saying, "Hi, my name is, this is what I do, this is my expertise." Be the one that stands out. Thank me later. Now let's get into transitions for just a second. Transitions are really, really important because I want you to picture this. You're driving down the road and all of a sudden the car just stops on their brakes or makes a sharp left turn and you're like, "Whoa, what the heck just happened?" Think about transitions like that inside of your talk. Now, you have the option to be really structured. So the next thing we're going to talk about is, or you can just say, "which leads me to." Transitions are these one-liners that you can place in between the core segments of your talk that lead the audience to the next place. The better you get at it, the more smooth it'll be. It'll feel like you're just simply guiding the audience to look this way and do this thing, or guiding them to look this way and do this thing. Or you can say, "we're going to be looking over here today versus over here today." Like, you have the option to make transitions very structured, or you can utilize the art of speaking to be really smooth. In fact, I like to look at it kind of like the streams, like how do I say this? Like the Christmas light streams that you hang on your house. It's like this really smooth transition into the next point. So they don't really feel it. It just kind of happens. And that's where the art takes place. So like I said here, just make it smooth and undetectable. And if you're using a story to transition, make sure it's relevant, right? Make sure it's relevant. We don't get into stories here, but just know the importance of stories inside of your signature talk and that you want to make sure that no matter what, it's the most relevant story to the message that you're sharing. Because we all have stories for days, but are you using the right ones inside of your talk? Okay, so that's for transitions. Then we have the key talking points. So you've opened, right? You have the first 10 to 20 seconds. So let's say that you opened with a question and then you utilize a transition into maybe your first story, right? You utilize a transition to the first story, which then leads you to these core talking points or key talking points. This is going to be in your signature talk. You have a few options. Because we're focusing on a talk that inspires, you can still leverage some of what I teach in a talk that sells, which are talking points. Can be teachings, they can be secrets where you're overcoming objections in your industry, or just core topics that really speak to the overall message that you're sending. Some frameworks that you can use here, you've got the hook, the story, a client testimonial, or a training. My recommendation is if you're going to be leading people from your message, like you're treating the talk that you're given as like a lead generation system, if you're going to be leading them into a back-end offer, you just want to make sure you're not giving away too much of the how inside of the talk, because then there's no reason for them to really follow you unless there's something really special you're offering on the back end. So some people lead into, how do I say this? Like if you're overcoming objections, for example, or limiting beliefs, then you're going to want to make sure that it's directly related to the offer you're sending on the back end. Okay. So a hook is simply the transition that I mentioned to you. It can also be the lead in story. And if you're giving a message, like for example, in the past, I did a webinar and it was on how to create your signature talk without spending months or years crafting your message. Something like that. It can be really simple and surface level, or if you want to go deeper, you can use, think about some limiting beliefs that exist towards your offer or towards your message and speak to those by treating it like a knob. Okay, follow me here. So if you're going to put a story as a way to persuade your audience here, treat it like a knob. A lot of times your audience is coming to you or they're in front of you and they're in one place, right? This is where they are. You have to meet people where they are and take them where you want them to go in order to activate them and encourage them to make a change or to take action. And so these are just ways that you can go about doing that. You want your talking points to serve as like a knob that activates the audience to want to move or change or make a difference. If you're a super technical person and you have really technical content, that's great. You just want to make sure that you have a story or something that supports the point. You want to do that dance with the audience. You want to say, okay, I'm like, for example, if you're selling an app, okay, the app is great, but let me tell you what happened when Bob used this app or when Ashley started using this app. That's just going to back up the message that you're sharing. So the bottom line is here. This is your opportunity to go deeper into your message. So you want to make sure that you're using analogies, stories, examples, client testimonials, anything that's going to really enforce the understanding of your message. Especially if you're a highly intelligent person, you're going to want to make sure that you bring the intelligence level down so that way people can comprehend what it is that you're saying. I think they say like a 6th or 7th grade reading level is recommended here when it comes to delivering your message. So if you're an expert, this applies to you. If you're just simply sharing a story or you want to just touch on these key talking points, then do it in such a way that you're really landing the message and you're getting people to the other side of what it is that you're trying to say so you get that buy-in. Yeah. A lot of speakers are disrupting industries. So if you're one of those disruptors, then you have a harder climb to getting people to changing their belief system, to buying into what it is that you're saying, and then leading them to either the call to action or the offer that you have on the back end. Which then leads us to the closing call to action or mic drop moment. Because we're focusing primarily on a talk that inspires, I want you to look at this as, where do you want the audience to go next after your talk? So maybe you've just inspired them in such a way, they've had breakthroughs from your message, or they're really strongly resonating and they're like, yes, that's exactly what I needed. It's like you really brought the medicine. Where do you want the audience to go next? You have some options. You can bring it full circle back into your opening. So if you opened with a question, fact, statistic, story, tie it back in at the end. So it's very obvious that you just curated an intentional experience for the people listening. So bring it full circle. So for example, like when I told you guys that I did that corporate talk, at the very end of that talk, because I didn't have anything to sell on the back end, it was corporate. They were employees and I wasn't really there to sell anything anyways. I just wanted to inspire them and see if my message worked. So at the very end, I said, so tomorrow when you wake up, or I think I said maybe actually, so the next time if you're questioning, can you achieve a goal? Or if you're struggling to achieve a goal, forgive me guys, it was a long time ago and I don't remember it verbatim, but it was more so like putting them into the next step, which is like, so the next time you wake up or whenever it's time for you to, work towards that next goal, then you're going to want to do X, Y, and Z. You have everything you need, just apply X, Y, and Z, which was like a recap of the entire message I just shared. A few other options is, tomorrow when you wake up or when you leave here today, like if they want to take action immediately, or the next time you ... You can also provide a choice, A or B. So you have the option right now to do nothing. If you do nothing, nothing changes. Or you can apply this and do X, Y, and Z. You have two options. What's it going to be? In a talk that sells, the entire purpose is to get people to make a decision. A lot of times they're teetering on the edge of a decision. They've been in indecision for a really long time, which is detrimental to our life, in my opinion. You want to do whatever you can to gather the information you need to make a decision to take your next step. And so when you've positioned the audience to say, okay, well, now that you have all this information, you have two choices. What's it going to be for you? And you give them the authority to make their own decision. even though you've led them to this point. Another one is, imagine how successful you'll be when. Just put them into that next level, that quantum leap, if you will. Just put them there and see if it doesn't make a difference, because a lot of people are just operating based on fear. And so if you're that kind of speaker that knows how to activate them, then you're in great shape. Activate them and then say, go do the damn thing, right? Another option here, you can let the audience complete a sentence for you. So this is an advanced technique where in speaking, let's say there was a really important line that drove your message. So you would do a talking point and then you would land it with a signature line. That's something that you can use. Or let's say you wanted to do something where it's like a fill in the blank. You can do that as well. They can complete a sentence for you. These are audience engagement techniques, but you can also close with this and you can have that really strong mic drop moment as well. So a few things not to say. My time is up. This concludes my talk. Well, I hope this helps. Some things just not to say. Instead, just land your message at the very end, like with just as much strength as you did at the beginning. The opening and closing are so important, you guys. In fact, the closing can sometimes be more important because they're going to remember that more than anything. So the bottom line here is you want them to take something away from your talk, whether it's an opportunity to work with you, to change their life, or to form new habits. Right? You're there to make a change. And you're doing it on a bigger scale when you're speaking to an entire audience. And then for anybody here who gets to, do a Q&A, I would be mindful as to where the Q&A happens. Sometimes it's better to put the Q&A before the closing. You just kind of open it. Maybe there's a few people that get to interact for a moment, and then you get to sum it up. Or if that's not how the event organizer has it laid out, you have the opportunity to do a Q&A at the end. Do it. Just do it and just say, okay, we're going to open up for a live Q&A. You probably have a lot of questions for me. This is how you would do that. So you can open up for a live Q&A. I've given you a lot to think about, and I know you have questions. Or what questions do you have? You want to keep it super open-ended, so it's not like, so who here has questions? Or does anybody here have a question? If you get a no, then it ends there. You want to avoid that. You want to keep it open-ended if possible. Let's see, repeat audience questions back. This is a really great tip. So if somebody asks a question in the audience and maybe they weren't loud enough for everybody to hear, or maybe for whatever reason it came through a little fuzzy, you want to go ahead and repeat the question so everybody in the audience can hear the question that got asked. And then another one is plant a question in advance. So if you're somebody who's like, oh, maybe nobody has any questions for me, just get together with somebody that you know in the audience, or maybe somebody that you networked with before the event, and say, would you mind whenever I open up for questions to be somebody who says, yes, I have a question. And that'll just kind of open up the room. Yeah, like I said here, what not to say is asking a closed question, like a yes or no response, because it just decreases your chances of opening the discussion. So the bottom line is be ready to answer any and all questions that were left unanswered from your presentation. The more questions you have at the end will indicate, number one, there's a demand for other information, and number two, you didn't cover these things during your talk. And then I said here, if you're selling from stage, the only questions remaining should be, how do I sign up, or how much is it? Because this was focused mostly on a talk that inspires, obviously this doesn't apply, but I just want it to be that you want to be able to cover the exact information that's necessary to get people to want more from you. So if you have any questions, there is going to be a link below. There are other offers if you're interested in learning how to sell from stage or promote your products and services from stage. There's also some other links below if you want to get more connected or you want to join my Speaker Connect community.